The Apache's minigun jammed in the middle of a firefight. Everyone thought it was over, until Sophia dropped her toolkit in the dust. She worked under fire calm as stone, and when the pilot caught sight of the SEAL Trident tattoo hidden on her arm, he froze. Because no one like her was supposed to exist. The morning was already heavy with dust. The forward base never really slept, but that day it felt different. Radios cracked with clipped voices. Engines roared. Boots stomped over dirt that clung to everything like a curse. Sophia tightened the strap of her toolkit against her shoulder. The leather was worn thin, scuffed from years of use, but it still held every tool she needed. She had rebuilt engines in storms, patched hydraulics under fire, and once repaired a transmission with nothing but bent wire. But this morning, it was different. The voice came sharp over the comms. Apache 3-2 jammed minigun. "We're under fire. Need immediate support." The words froze the air around the soldiers. Gunfire echoed from the ridges beyond. Dust rose like smoke, swallowing the landing zone in a yellow haze. Someone cursed. Someone else prayed under their breath. Sophia stepped forward. "I'll handle it," she said. Her tone was even. Not loud, not demanding. Just steady. That steadiness carried more weight than shouting ever could. A lieutenant gave her a quick glance, then nodded. She walked across the packed earth toward the helicopter. The Apache's rotors stirred the air into a violent whirlwind. Debris slapped her face, but she didn't flinch. Her boots crunched in rhythm, deliberate like a drum beat in the middle of chaos. The pilot sat high in the cockpit, tense, eyes darting across instruments. His name was Captain Eric Sandville. Sweat shone on his brow despite the morning chill. He saw her approaching and stiffened. Mechanics weren't supposed to move like that, too calm, too precise. Sophia dropped to one knee by the open gun compartment. The barrels were still, jammed mid-cycle. It looked like a corpse waiting for revival. She opened her kit with a snap. Tools lay in perfect order. Wrenches, pins, calibrators, everything she needed. She remembered something then, the broken watch in her pocket. Its glass cracked, its hands frozen at a time she could never forget. She carried it everywhere. It was a reminder. Time can stop at any second. Fix the machine or it ends here. The first bolt came loose. The sound was sharp against the roar of rotors. Her fingers worked fast but not rushed. Each turn was measured. Each pin removed with care. Around her, soldiers crouched low behind sandbags, rifles raised at the ridges. They whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. "Who is she?" "She's not like the others." Sophia kept her head down. Focus, noise was only noise. She had trained her mind long ago to treat it that way. Flashbacks flickered like shadows in her head. Cold nights in dark water, crawling through mud with 50 pounds strapped to her back. The sound of instructors shouting until her ears rang. The memory of an empty wallet she once carried. The last reminder of a life before she chose this path. No money, no safety. Nothing but hunger and the decision to fight for something greater. Her hand brushed her forearm as she reached deeper into the jammed compartment. The sleeve slipped. A faint glint showed in the dust-heavy sun. She ignored it, though she knew someone might see. The pilot did. His eyes narrowed. His breath caught. The SEAL Trident. It was only a fragment visible. Ink faded but unmistakable. He froze, gripping the controls tighter. He had seen that symbol before. He knew what it meant. Sophia didn't notice. She leaned closer, adjusting a stubborn rotor shaft, twisting until the jam began to ease. Sparks flicked, quick and dangerous. Sweat rolled down her cheek, carving a line through dust. She whispered to herself, too soft for anyone else to hear. "Not today." The barrels twitched. Almost free. Then, a crack tore the air. Gunfire from the ridge. Bullets kicked dirt inches from her boots. Soldiers shouted, returning fire. The pilot's voice broke through the radio. "Status, mechanic?" Sophia didn't look up. Almost. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The last bolt turned. The minigun groaned like a beast waking from sleep. But before she could press the reset switch, the ridge erupted with movement. Shadows. Enemy fighters pouring over the rocks. The jam was nearly fixed. But time was gone. The first enemy round struck a sandbag and bursted into a cloud of dirt. Soldiers ducked lower, shouting for cover. The Apache shook under the strain of incoming fire. Sophia stayed where she was. Her sleeve slid further as she reached for the calibration tool. The Trident shone clearer now, etched into skin like a secret scar. The pilot's eyes widened. His breath stopped, he knew. He shouldn't know, but he did. Sophia pressed her hand into the weapon's guts, shifting the alignment pin back into place. She felt the jam loosen under her fingertips. Her heart slowed instead of racing. She had trained for this exact storm. The broken watch ticked in her mind, though its hands never moved. She imagined it counting seconds she didn't have. Gunfire roared. One soldier screamed as he went down. Another dragged him back behind cover. Dust clung to sweat and blood alike. The ridges spat more fire, bullets biting the earth around her knees. Sophia didn't blink. Her hands moved with rhythm, a silent dance between steel and instinct. The barrel finally spun freely under her touch. She pressed the reset. The minigun screamed back to life. Its barrels spun fast, spitting fire into the ridges. Enemy fighters scattered, their momentum broken by the sudden fury raining down from above. Soldiers cheered, brief and sharp. Relief rippled through the line. But the pilot didn't cheer. His eyes were locked on her arm, on the tattoo, he whispered, though no one heard. "Impossible!" Sophia stood, wiping grime from her hands onto her uniform. Her eyes scanned the ridge. The gun was working, but the battle wasn't over. More shadows moved along the far slope. She counted 5, no, 7. More coming, the pilot's voice crackled. "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Not yet. The empty wallet flashed in her memory again. Hungry nights. The decision she had made to walk the dusty road of training. A path that broke most who tried. The wallet had nothing in it, but it reminded her of what she had once been willing to risk. Everything. Now she risked again. She grabbed her kit, slung it back onto her shoulder. Another burst of fire peppered the landing zone. A mortar whistled in the distance. Soldiers shouted. She didn't look up. She only muttered to herself. "They're closer than they should be." The pilot heard her through the comms. "What did you say?" She looked up at him, eyes sharp, and for the first time he saw the weight behind them. Not a mechanic's eyes, a soldier's. The mortar whistled louder. Then the ground exploded near the far end of the base. Smoke and dust swallowed half the landing zone. Men screamed through the haze. The Apache was firing. Soldiers were firing. But the mortars were locked in. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She saw the second mortar team on the ridge adjusting their tube. She dropped her kit and ran straight toward the blast zone. The dusty road cracked under her boots. Every step was heavy, but she didn't slow. Smoke blurred the air, making the battlefield look like a nightmare. She heard the second mortar drop into the tube. She had seconds. Her broken watch rattled in her pocket with each stride. She thought of it often, how it had stopped the day she lost someone she couldn't bring back. She had promised herself then, never freeze when others depended on her. The mortar fired. Sophia dropped flat into the dirt. The shell screamed overhead and exploded beyond the fuel trucks. Fire rolled into the air. Men dove for cover. She pushed up, sprinting again. The ridgeline loomed ahead. Enemy fighters crouched near the mortar, reloading. They didn't see her at first, too focused on the Apache tearing into their flank. She grabbed a fallen soldier's rifle on the ground, checked the chamber, loaded. The empty wallet slipped out of her pocket as she crouched. It fell into the dust, landing open. She didn't notice. Her breathing steadied. The rifle lined with her eye. She squeezed once. The loader fell. Another turned, but too late. Another squeeze. The ridge grew silent. The mortar tube lay useless now, smoke curling from its mouth. Sophia kicked it aside and scanned for movement. Nothing immediate, but she knew more would come. Voices crackled over her headset. "Quinn, status?" She didn't reply. She looked back down the slope. Soldiers were moving again, dragging wounded, shouting orders. The Apache circled, minigun glowing red-hot from overuse. Her sleeve had ridden up again. The tattoo caught the sun, burning gold against her skin. The pilot saw it again. His hand froze on the controls. He knew now, without doubt. But before he could call her name again, the ridgeline to her left erupted with more fire. Dozens of enemy silhouettes rising from the rocks. Rifles lifted. Sophia stood exposed, rifle in hand. Smoke curling around her like a cloak. The first bullets cracked toward her. She dropped into cover behind a rock, the edge sparking as bullets struck. Dust exploded in clouds around her. Her broken watch jabbed against her ribs as she moved. She pulled it out and shoved it deeper into her pocket, as if its frozen hands could remind her that time was running out again. The Apache swung overhead, minigun spitting into the ridge. The sound was thunder. Rocks shattered. Fighters dropped, but more appeared, relentless. Sophia fired back, short bursts. Each shot placed with precision. Years of training lived in her hands, invisible to those around her. She didn't miss. The soldiers below began to rally. They saw her up on the ridge, standing against the swarm, and their fear shifted into something else. Hope. The dusty road stretched beyond the ridge, a line leading into emptiness. She thought of it often. The endless marches during training, miles that broke men to tears. She had walked it with bare feet once, blistered and bleeding, refusing to stop. That road was always with her. It kept her standing now. Status! The pilot's voice cracked again. She ducked as a round cracked off the rock near her ear. Busy, she answered. Another burst from the minigun tore into the ridge, scattering fighters. The air filled with screams and dust. Sophia moved closer, closing the distance to the survivors. She fought with mechanical precision, a rifle in her hand, but something deeper in her stance. She was not just a mechanic holding a borrowed gun. She was something more. The pilot knew it. His hands trembled as he hovered lower, eyes never leaving her. Then, another explosion. Louder, closer. A second Apache spun out of the sky, smoke trailing from its engine. It slammed into the ground beyond the far ridge, flames bursting high. The battlefield froze for a second. Even the enemy fighters turned, staring at the wreckage. Sophia's eyes hardened. She dropped the empty rifle, grabbed her kit again, and without hesitation began running toward the downed Apache. Flames rose from the wreckage like black banners. The second Apache lay on its side, one rotor blade twisted into the dirt. Soldiers shouted into radios, but the static was filled with chaos. Sophia ran straight for it. Her lungs burned, but her legs didn't falter. Dust clung to her like armor. She reached the wreckage. The minigun on this bird was jammed too, half torn by the crash. Smoke curled from its compartment. She dropped her kit beside it and went to work. The broken watch slipped from her pocket as she knelt. Its cracked glass reflected the fire, the hands still frozen. She ignored it. Tools clicked in her fingers. Wrenches turned. Bolts screamed as they came loose. The pilot circled above in his Apache, still firing to cover her. His voice cut through the comms. "You can't fix that under fire." Sophia didn't answer. Her sleeve slid again. The Trident gleamed, bold now, unmistakable. His voice broke, sharper this time. "You're a SEAL, aren't you?" The words cracked louder than the gunfire. Soldiers nearby turned their heads. Whispers started. The rumor was out now, carried on the wind. But Sophia didn't pause. She pushed deeper into the jammed weapon, sweat rolling down her cheek. Sparks burned her gloves, but she kept going. The enemy surged again from the far ridge. Bullets tore into the dirt around her knees. A soldier screamed behind her, she whispered to herself. Almost. The barrels began to twitch, then a shout from the ridge. A heavy-caliber weapon locked onto the wreckage. The sound of its charging filled the air like thunder. The pilot shouted from above, "Sophia, move!" But she didn't move. Not yet. The heavy gun fired. The ground around the wreckage erupted in dirt and flame. Shrapnel tore through the air. Sophia stayed crouched, hands locked on the weapon. She twisted the last alignment pin into place. Sparks screamed. The barrels spun free. She slammed the reset switch. The minigun roared louder than before, cutting through the chaos with a wall of fire. Enemy fighters scattered, their momentum broken. The pilot's Apache dove low, joining her fire. Together, the two aircraft cleared the ridge in a storm of lead and flame. Sophia stood slowly, smoke rising around her. Her sleeve was rolled high now. The Trident plain for all to see. No hiding left. Soldiers stared. None spoke. She bent, picked up the broken watch from the dirt, and slid it back into her pocket. Its cracked face glinted once before disappearing. She lifted her kit onto her shoulder again, calm as ever. The pilot's voice came through the comms, low and certain. "I knew it. You're not just a mechanic." Sophia met his gaze through the glass of the cockpit. Her expression was unreadable. "I fix what's broken," she said simply. That's all. The empty wallet still lay in the dust where she had dropped it hours ago. She didn't look back. Some things didn't need to be carried anymore. The dusty road stretched beyond the battlefield, endless and waiting. She knew she would walk it again. The Apache circled, fire still smoking from its barrels. Soldiers began to regroup, voices rising in cautious relief. The battle was won, for now. But in the silence between gunfire and wind, the truth hung unspoken. Sophia was more than anyone here could name, and the world would only see glimpses of her when the dust demanded it. She walked away from the wreckage, into the haze, leaving behind the watch, the wallet, and the whispers. The legend was faceless, but it had been born. The battlefield lay behind them, scarred and smoking. The air still carried the tang of burned fuel and gunpowder. Soldiers moved like ghosts, carrying the wounded, counting the dead. The Apache circled once more before heading back toward base. Sophia walked alone. Her boots crunched over brass casings and shattered stone. The dusty road stretched ahead, endless as always. She didn't look back. She never did. The broken watch pressed against her ribs. She pulled it out, stared at its frozen hands. The crack in the glass caught the last light of the sinking sun. Time stuck, refusing to move forward. She slipped it back into her pocket, jaw tight. Something rustled from the ridge. She stopped. Her fingers twitched toward the sidearm at her belt. The soldiers hadn't noticed. They were too busy regrouping. She saw it first, a glint of metal against stone. Not a weapon. A lens. She crouched, a scope. Someone was watching. Her pulse slowed instead of racing. She adjusted her stance, letting the dust conceal her shape. Another memory flickered. Hell Week. Crawling through cold mud while instructors shone lights in her face, daring her to blink. She hadn't then, and she wouldn't now. The empty wallet still lay where she had dropped it hours before, forgotten in the dirt. A soldier bent to pick it up. He opened it, frowned at the nothing inside, then looked toward Sophia as if realizing for the first time that emptiness had shaped her. Sophia's eyes never left the ridge. The scope vanished. Whoever had been there had pulled back. She knew what that meant. Scouts, watching, measuring, planning. The battle wasn't finished. It had only shifted. The pilot's voice crackled in her headset. Sophia, report. She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she stepped off the road, boots crunching against gravel, and moved toward the ridge where the lens had flashed. She climbed fast, her muscles carrying the memory of every march, every dusty mile of training that had tried to break her. The ridge leveled. Silence. No fighters. No scouts. Only a small object left behind, half buried in the dirt. She bent and lifted it. A radio, still warm, still humming faint static. Her grip tightened. Whoever had been here was close then. A voice through the static. Not English. Sharp, coded, urgent. She couldn't translate every word, but she caught enough. They saw her. Confirmed tattoo. Move tonight, her blood chilled. They weren't just watching the base. They were watching her. She dropped the radio, eyes sweeping the horizon. Dust rolled across the road below. Soldiers looked small from up here, shadows moving between ruins. The watch ticked in her head, frozen but louder now. The dusty road stretched further than she had imagined. And somewhere out there in the smoke and the shadows, the enemy wasn't planning another attack on the base. They were coming for her.